World Without Visas. Around the World with Valery Shanin. The trip across Thailand, Cambodia, Laos and Myanmar became the next stage of the World Without Visas project, in which Valery Shanin travels only around the countries visa-free for Russians. On this travel, his fellow travelers became biophysicist Yuri Sprzycki, volcanologist Sergei Chernyshov, muralist Vitaly Melnichuk from Moscow, and economist Katya Klimantieva from the city of Dolinsk on the island of Sakhalin. Indochina without visas. Third series. Life is booming on the bank of the Irrawaddy River. The loading and offloading of the fragile wooden boats is underway. The equality of rights here is absolute. Women work equally with men. These loaders live right here, on the river bank. However uncomfortable, but they don't need to spend time on trains to get to work. The residents of megalopolises, who spend several hours a day in transport, may envy them secretly. Each way of life has its benefits. Irrawaddy, the main river of Myanmar. It is the largest transport route, the water source for the rice fields, and the object of worshipping. It appeared magically. Once the god of rain Irrawaddy was passing astride an elephant on the lifeless desert, heated under bright beams of the tropical sun. It was very hot, and the god created a miracle. On his divine command, from the trunk of the elephant a water stream flew that turned into a mighty river. The desert revived at once. The coasts turned green, juicy grass covered the earth, the dense woods stood up as a wall. People were so happy for this miracle, and in gratitude, they called the river in the name of the god. Irrawaddy originates in the Himalayas and flows from the north to the south across all the country, covering a distance of over 2,000 kilometers, and later flows into the Andaman Sea. During the dry season, the river shoals, and during the rainy season, it spreads. When water rises over the floodplains, a new layer of silt is deposited as sediment. This is why it is possible to reap big crops of rice in the valley of Irrawaddy, even without any fertilizers. Should we be surprised at all that all ancient Burmese kingdoms arose on the coasts of this river, close to their food source? In Myanmar, there are pagodas at every step. They build them not for mercantile reasons, but for the purpose of improvement of their karma. This is their way to pray for forgiveness of their sins. The more sins, the taller should be the stupa. This is why the biggest pagodas were built on the orders of the most cruel and treacherous kings that were in blood up to the elbow. In 1790, the king Bodopaya, who became famous for being a great warrior and during whose reign the territory of the country considerably expanded and the enemies were destroyed, declared the beginning of the construction of a new stupa. He had many sins, therefore the stupa had to be a giant one. Thousands of bricklayers, day after day, without days off and holidays, laid the bricks, layer after layer. The building material was carried from all over the country. It took 13 years to build a huge pedestal, about 50 meters high. The bell was cast at the end of the 18th century, at the same time when the stupa was starting to be built. It was suspended on a steel beam, fixed on strong reinforced concrete columns. For the sake of protection from bad weather, they constructed the open-work wooden pavilion in style of the traditional Burmese wooden temples. The bell, with a diameter of 5 meters and weighing over 90 tons, is the world's largest. From operating ones, the Moscow Tsar bell weighs twice more, but it never rang. The bells at the Burmese pagodas don't call believers to a church service as in the Christian churches. Each pilgrim knocks on a bell with a wooden beater in order to draw attention of heavens to himself personally. Buddhism is the religion of self-rescue. The city of Ava, known also as Inva, was founded in the 14th century at the confluence of the Myinge River with the Irrawaddy River. Up to the year of 1824, it was the capital of Burma and occupied an extensive territory. Only separate ruins remain until now, widely spaced from each other. During the rainy season, the road has been destroyed. Locals have no jeeps. It is necessary to rely on the traditional type of transport. No dirt can scare it. What's with the camera? Nothing good. Has it got some dirt inside? Yes. It needs to dry. On the hill and its vicinities on the bank of the Irrawaddy River, there are about 300 monasteries and pagodas built. In the most honorable place, there is the pagoda of Song'at Ponyashin. They certainly did not save money on this one. The stupa was covered with gold. At the temple's side, an enormous statue of the sitting Buddha was placed. A large pool is decorated with sacred animals. The cave, cut out in the rocks, was filled with Buddha's statues. On the opposite bank of the Irrawaddy River, in 1824, the city of Mandalay was founded. It was the capital of Burma during the period of history when the country was being gradually developed by the English colonialists. During World War II, the Japanese airplanes destroyed the English barracks by bombing. The fire has started. The unique wooden palace burned down. The fortification collapsed too. It was restored later, but there is no money yet for the restoration of the palace in its original form. Mandalay, the spiritual capital of Myanmar. It is exactly here where the most highly esteemed Buddhist statue is kept, Buddha Mahamuni, or the Great Wise Man. The goldsmiths refine their skills in producing the thinnest, almost transparent pieces of gold leaf. They are convenient to be attached to Buddha's statues. The thickness of the gold armor covering the Mahamuni statue has already reached 20 centimeters and continues to constantly increase. Only the face remains free from the gold plate. Only men can approach the statue. Women are only allowed to look at it from a respectful distance. One more holy site, the hill of Mandalay. A stone stairway of 999 steps leads to its top. All slopes are built up with monasteries, pagodas, stupas, and Buddha's statues. At the top, they established the gilded stupa. From the observation deck at its basis, there is a view opening over the Irrawaddy River and downtown in the afternoon, while at night, only the scattered lights. Streets aren't lit in evenings, but life is booming on them. Directly on the road, they expose trays with cheap Chinese clothes, footwear, counterfeit discs, stationery products, posters of pop stars and beautiful girls. Street kitchens work here too. There are no drunk people around. They prefer ice cream. In Myanmar, there are still many areas that are closed to foreigners. Fairly recently, they have allowed entry into the city of Moniwa, that is 136 kilometers to the northwest of Mandalay. It is possible to get there by a regular bus. The ferry route connects the city of Moniwa with the village of Nyangbin, located on the opposite bank of Chindvin River. From the pier, there are minibuses running to the caves of On Vindong. There are 300 caves there. The caves are cut out in the hills, put together from soft limestone. According to archaeologists, people lived inside of them back in the Stone Age. After, the caves of On Vindong were chosen by ancient hermits and saints. When Buddhism reached Burma, there was a cave monastery established here. Nobody knows definitely how many caves are here. Those who started to count quit somewhere around the 900, and not all caves are open. The entrance to many of them is covered with rocks or grown over with dense prickly bushes. There never was a large-scale restoration in the caves of On Vindong. There is no lighting inside them. The unique frescoes and statues can only be seen in a beam of a flashlight or in the light from a camera's flash. 11 kilometers from Moniwa in the 1930s, they built the temple complex of Monin Tambuda, occupying the territory of 15 hectares. The main temple, Sambutk Kat Kiyav, is filled with Buddhas of all types and sizes, from tiny 10-centimeter ones up to 2 to 3 meters high. They were all counted. According to these exact calculations, there are 582,363 of them here. They possibly planned to reach 1 million, but there wasn't enough money or persistence. In the religious complex Laikyun Setkiya, there are much fewer statues. But what kind? The standing Buddha is 116 meters. The lying is slightly smaller, only 90. The gilded stupa standing at the bottom of the hill looks tiny, but it is as high as a 9-story house. A regular bus brings the travelers to the city of Pakoka. Down the Irrawaddy River, the 2-decker boats are still cruising around, constructed not later than in the middle of the past century and that are already decommissioned in other countries as scrap metal. They are used as transport both for freights and passengers. Each family sits down on their mat, as in separate compartments, only without walls. The steamship goes slowly. From the upper reaches of Irrawaddy to its mouth, it goes down in a week. Bagan, one of the main tourist destinations not only of Myanmar but also of all Indochina. The ruins of the ancient city occupy a triangle of about 50 square kilometers on the bend of Irrawaddy River. In 1847, the king Pinbaya made Bagan the capital of the first Burmese empire. There was a large religious center. It was called the City of 4 million pagodas. Archaeologists, however, consider that there were less pagodas. By their different calculations, there are from 2 to 5,000. This is still a lot for one, even big, ancient city. Bagan had existed throughout 4 centuries and was destroyed in 1287 by the Chinese troops under the command of the Mongolian Khan Hubilaya. The abandoned pagodas and temples slowly but surely dilapidated and collapsed. They were plundered by all who felt like it, from romantically minded seekers of treasures to pragmatic marauders. Temples also collapsed during earthquakes. The greatest loss was caused by Europeans. After the accession of Burma into the British Crown, they felt like full owners here. The British admirers of fine carefully collected all figurines, signs and statues to take out to England. They would even send the frescoes by cutting them off from walls together with a thick plaster coat. And still, even after several centuries of oblivion and plunder on the territory of the ancient city, there are many majestic constructions that remained. One day won't be enough to go visit all of them. We'll need to limit ourselves by visiting only several of them, the most noticeable and original temples. The temple Manuki was built on the money of the king of the state of Man. He was captured together with his court and was kept in the position of an honorable captive. Almost all the internal space of the building is occupied by a huge Buddha. In the side halls there are statues too. From the backside of the temple, there is a low and long hall with a huge extending statue of lying Buddha. Perhaps they constructed the statues first and ended up having no money for the temple, and it became necessary to save and to collect donations, and they needed a lot of them, judging by the size of the donation bowls. The best observation deck from where it is possible to take a good view of the plain with the 1,000 stupas and temples of Bagan is located on the top platform of Myinge River. All locals, including the king, the courtiers and monks, lived in wooden buildings. There is almost nothing remaining of them, and they are not in a hurry to restore them. They don't even have enough energy for the restoration of temples, although they do try to keep them in working condition. The temple of Kamayanzi can be distinguished from other temples of Bagan by its unusual form. It is a giant pyramid, as if it was flown here from the land of ancient Maya in Central America. It is not permitted to go up the temple's roof, but going inside the dark, dusty corridors with Buddha's statues is free admission. In the courtyard, for the tourists that are rare during the rainy season, they open a cafe, offering fresh sugar cane juice, squeezed out right here. The temple of Ananda is built in the form of a perfect square, with its side being about 70 meters. In the middle of each wall, they cut through a high doorway. A long covered gallery leads to it. The plastered walls smoothly transition into a row of roofs, becoming smaller and smaller. The corners are decorated with statues of lions, and the top of the building is crowned with a spike that makes it look similar to one of the Stalin's tall buildings in Moscow. The town of Mekitila, the main transit point of Myanmar. Here is the crossroads of the main highways, going from north to south and from west to east. From here, it is a good starting point on the way to any large city of the country. Along with buses on the Burmese roads, there are also shared route taxis, the pickups that were adapted for transportation of passengers. In pickups, there are places of first, second and third class with different level of comfort and price. The two places of the first class inside the cabin next to the driver. The second class is slightly cheaper inside the truck, and the passengers of the third class travel on the roof. The state of Shan, one of the national regions of Myanmar. The primary population here are not Burmans, but Shanas. Part of them continues to conduct armed battles in honor of the creation of their independent state. Huge territories of the Shan State still remain out of control of the central government. Only the triangle between Kalo, Pindaya and Inle Lake is open for tourists. 40 kilometers from Kalo, on the bank of the Butaloke Lake, there is a town called Pindaya. In its vicinities, there are a lot of karst caves. In the biggest of them, they organized something like a huge warehouse of images of Buddha. Looks like they started from the entrance. Here, the concentration of statues per square meter is higher, and they are more ancient according to their appearance. The further inside the cave, the less number of statues, and they are smaller in size. The Buddha's statues were placed here for the purpose of improvement of karma as well. At the basis of each statue is written on whose money it was made and when. There are already over 8,000 Buddhas in the cave. There are more and more of them every single day. For hikers in the state of Shan, there are dozens of routes laid, but trekking is allowed only under the control of the official guides. Tourists can stop overnight only in houses certified for the accommodation of foreigners. Old Man Sam is the most honored local guide. He assigned his pupil as our guide. The group will also be accompanied by a cook. His task is to acquaint the foreigners with local cuisine and not to poison us at the same time. Tasty hawthorn, almost like back home in Russia. Ours is better. There it is more juicy. The asphalt road has come to its end in the suburb of Kalo. The rice fields, coppices and pastures have begun. It is colder in the mountains than in the valley of Irrawaddy. It is impossible to count upon 3 harvests a year, maximum 1 or 2. There are no malarial mosquitoes. The biggest danger, venomous snakes. It is necessary to look attentively under your feet, not to inadvertently step on one of them. It's the peak time of the rainy season. It is cloudy, it drizzles, there are ponds and dirt under our feet. The red clay quickly sticks to the footwear and colors our clothes. The locals, who are also forced to move by foot, walk in gumboots or barefoot. Transport is rare here, and it is mainly animal-drawn. The houses are built in traditional style. On the first floor are the warehouse and the utility rooms, on the second, living rooms. One wall separates the bedroom, another, the kitchen. They cook on firewood, on a primitive fireplace. There is no such thing as a chimney. The smoke leaves through the window. The water is in the well and the toilet in the kitchen garden. On the third day, travelers arrived on the coast of the Inle Lake. We had to walk knee-high in water for the last 300 meters. During the rainy season, water level increases almost by half a meter. The Inle Lake lies at the altitude of 875 meters above sea level. It stretches for 20 kilometers from north to south, but at the same time, its depth doesn't even exceed 3 meters. Almost 70,000 people live on the coast of the Inle Lake. They are called the Int, children of the lake. In the town of Nyangshui, there are hotels for tourists, but there are even more monasteries here. They occupy a whole quarter of the city. The most distinct is the monastery of Yadanamang Ahong Paya, differing by its architectural appearance. It is silent, quiet, and calmly here. The action is brought here only by groups of young people that use the monastery yard as their sports ground. People live not only on the coast of the Inle Lake, but also directly on the water. Houses are built on pillars. They put together a light wooden framework. Then it is sheeted with bamboo reeded mats. The buildings, constructed by such technique, serve only 10 to 15 years. They are not subject for repair, and once old, they are dismantled for firewood. On the vacant place, they put together a new house, the exact copy of the old one. The technology is primitive, but it proved itself perfectly. However, progress has reached here too. The standard concrete boxes are slowly replacing the original wooden design. The main means of transport in the Burmese Venice are the boats. On the big boats, they install car motors with a helix on a long shaft. Small wooden boats are driven by the oars. The residents of neighboring villages are rushing to the market since early morning. The markets on the Inle Lake are arranged daily, but they are not on the same place. On Friday, the traders would gather in the village of Inding. Here, they sell vegetables and fruits grown in the vicinities, dry fish, self-made cosmetics, as well as imported products and consumer goods. There are even boats with souvenirs, and there is a lot of firewood. The food is still cooked on open fire stoves here. At the market, there is the staircase that starts going up to the rural monastery. The traders go there at the end of their working day. They bring offerings. Is there water here during the dry season? There is less, or does it drop to zero? People not only live, but also work on the Inle Lake. In the most usual house on pillars, they make their own alcohol, the traditional technology that has been proven in centuries. Rice is covered up with sugar, filled with water and exposed in big clay jugs under the hot sun. The ready home brew is then placed on fire and boiled. When passing along the long tube, the steam cools down and gets condensed into alcohol drops. Production waste is fed to the pigs. They are held right there, behind the shaky fence. It would be nice to snack on something. Tomato. At the smithy, they forge sickles, knives, scissors, swords, and plows according to a traditional technology. At the weaving factory, they extend fiber from the lotus stalks that is mixed with silk or cotton threads, and as a result, they get the original environmentally friendly fabric. There is also a cigar factory here. Cigars are made based on the original technology. Tobacco is wrapped not in tobacco leaves, but in lotus leaves.
This is inside tamari.
The Buddhist monasteries on the Inle Lake are built the same way as the houses, on pillars, and the biggest of them was constructed on an artificial island. Kongdo Monastery, not only the biggest but also the most original. From the architectural point of view and the most esteemed, Buddha's statues on the altar are covered with a thick layer of gold leaves, but each pilgrim seeks to add at least one more thin plate to them. Just what was I thinking? It's silver. Jewelers make silver spoons, earrings, rings, bracelets, keychains, and pendants.
Very small piece is difficult to make design. Make all by hand.
Вот видишь, выплавляют.
You see how they smelt it on coal.
He used 98% pure silver for ring.
There are also souvenir shops on the lake. Not only locals work in them, but some immigrants as well. The women with long necks have arrived for earnings from the region of the Golden Triangle. In Karen's tribe, all girls, once they turn 5 years old, wear from 5 to 25 copper rings on their necks. It is considered that a long neck is more beautiful than a short one. And beauty, as we all know, demands sacrifice. The rings, with weight reaching over several kilograms, need to be wear all their lives. All neck muscles will be atrophied and won't be able to independently support the head any longer. The inhabitants of the Inle Lake, who are not involved in servicing tourists, continue to be engaged in traditional crafts, fish with nets and grow up vegetables. The kitchen gardens are arranged on the artificial islands. They make large rafts from bamboo and seaweed. Then the rafts are covered with a thick layer of fertile silt lifted from the bottom of the lake. Wait, Victor. They grow vegetables not only for their own consumption, it is the main goods of local export. Tomatoes are transported by boats to Nyangshui. There, they get sorted, packed into wooden boxes and loaded on trucks to deliver across the country. The travel across Myanmar comes to an end in the same place where it began 2 weeks ago, in Yangon. Life in Myanmar flows slowly. Nobody hurries anywhere. They pray and sleep in monasteries, trade and communicate in the markets, walk in the streets even in the peak of tropical heavy rain. In Yangon, our travel across the Indochina countries comes to an end, and the project World Without Visas continues. Ahead are the new travels across the countries, visa-free for Russians.